Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today I have the best of the best, and I search out those best of the best. And my guest today, I have been observing for a few years now. She's doing a great job with her social media presence. I was so happy to see her at the Jacksonville Real Producers Magazine event a couple months ago, back in December. It was good to see her there, and that's when I invited her on the show. And more I research, as I do research every one of my guests, obviously, and find out a little bit more about them to make the show more interesting. The more interesting content I think we're going to have today, because my guest has a story, and I am really looking, hopefully we can pull it out of her and inspire others, and that's really the purpose of the show. So her experience is going to be invaluable. So let's welcome the Casella behind the Casella Sells Real Estate, Jodi Casella. Welcome to the show.
Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm glad to have you on. And like I was saying in the intro, when I went on and started studying, where you've been a little bit, I think there's something there, because one of the things I like to do on the show is for obviously inspire other real estate agents. But then I think there's a cross-reference service even for loan officers, but anyone in any sort of industry that they're in, and as our life takes us, life has taken you some through the real estate career. You've been with several brokers, yeah. So I'm really curious. We don't have to mention their names; that's not really important. But what you learned from others in the industry, because it's been roughly about 8 years you've been in the industry now. So, but as always, I like to kick off the show. You're from Minnesota.
I am.
Tell us about that.
Minnesota, as we call it.
Yeah, right now I'm sure they're buried in Minnetonka, right?
Yes. Yeah, Minnetonka, that's where I grew up. My mom, when my family split up, my parents divorced, my mom moved out there. And it was a great opportunity because Minnetonka has great education. I met a lot of great families there. And then once I graduated, I went to St. Cloud State University for 2 years.
Okay.
Freezing my butt off, walking to campus. And
how do they do it? Is the campus mostly enclosed? I think it's one of the experiences when I came down, just looking at the high schools here in Florida, especially the old school high schools, a lot of it, the doors open to the outside.
Yeah, if you just have to rough it and bear the cold.
Yeah.
That's just part of life in Minnesota.
Lifestyle.
Unless you're downtown where my mom worked, they had skywalkways and things like that. But
right.
It wasn't that fancy where I was going to college.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember it was a few years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine I grew up in Massachusetts, and he lives in New York now. And he said, I would never live in Florida. It's so hot. And I said, well, dude, because really September to May is why we live here. It's June, July, and August. Yeah, we run from air conditioning to air conditioning, but it's those other months and why you guys are coming down here now, even though it's cool here this week because we got a little blur. Yeah, I think we had the coldest day was yesterday. I think we've had so far this year, and probably will be for the year. We had that.
But I can break out my boots. Still
That's
then,
right.
so.
Right. We actually will put pants on then.
Yeah.
and wear a sweater. Right?
And sweaters. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So. What did you went to St. Cloud, and then you had on your LinkedIn Friends University.
So that's a small campus in Wichita. I ended up in Kansas. I followed my heart.
Okay.
Which led me to really get into real estate.
Heart means a man?
A man, okay. Yeah. And it's funny because I ended up meeting my husband there who's from Massachusetts.
Things happen for a reason.
Yeah, I always believe that. There's people put in your life for a reason, and that definitely happened with him. But he came from Massachusetts as well. So I lived there about 4 years. I managed a bar. I got really invested in this group at Johnny's Tavern, which was a pretty prominent bar that we really into the March Madness season. So I learned from them, great management. So even though my heart didn't lead to anything significant in marriage with that gentleman, we got invested in this really awesome bar.
Sure.
And then one of the owner's wives was in real estate, and she said, "Girl, I need to steal you. You need to come work with me."
Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. So another one thing we talk about pretty much and probably on every other show is how many agents actually started off in the hospitality. Yeah. In this case, the restaurant bar that you were working in, and then how it migrated over. So you actually started working as an agent in Wichita, or how'd you?
Actually, so Overland Park, Kansas,
Overland
was one of the other bars. Yeah, Overland Park came Johnny's came from Lawrence, Kansas, where KU was, and I was living there for a summer, and I ended up going to Friends just because it was a school that I liked because I could do it remotely in Overland Park.
Okay.
Johnny's hired me there, and I was really doing well with my schedule there, going to school, managing, pretty much working every day.
Working and going to school.
Every day, staying up late nights.
Right.
But with the transition into real estate, it was really property management. Robin, who was one of the bar owners' wives, which they ended up managing properties, was her shift from real estate. She worked in Arizona as a realtor, came home to Kansas, and then kind of our friendship turned into me helping with her management.
So you're getting a taste of a little bit of real estate there.
Yes, a lot of real estate with.
Because I saw really the first one you had really mentioned as a broker that you worked for was in Fort Lauderdale. So
yes.
how do you transition from Kansas to South Florida?
So I actually spent 12 years in Massachusetts.
Okay.
My husband and I got married. I moved out
there. There were some other jobs in there. I just skipped right to the end. Okay.
Well, so the property management career, I shifted and moved to Massachusetts because I then again somewhat followed my heart, but was more, let me see if the career will take me somewhere and if we end up together, which we did.
Yeah.
So I was there 12 years, but I worked with Avalon Bay Communities, which was essentially 6 years of lease-up communities doing all new construction. So what we would do is I'd be there to go through construction, fill up, put heads on the beds, is what we called it.
That's it.
But also with a very good background of learning customer service, how to manage people's emotions during move-in, move-outs, all those things.
You cannot learn enough, I think, about, there's a lot of industries, but we're specifically talking about real estate. And obviously that's a whole nother avenue. And I mean, if you're listening to podcasts or reading these books, there's so many facets to our business. It's not just, the single family home. You're talking about, leasing, new construction. There's so much involved, and obviously new construction in Northeast Florida. That's where all the inventory's at right now. Having to deal with that and the struggles and tribulations, but putting that, on your belt, really, a belt of experience has to pay off today. So you started so how do we get to Fort Lauderdale?
That's Fort Lauderdale was back to your original. How did we get down to South Florida?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing I heard you say, like, why would you move to Florida? Your friends were asking you in Massachusetts, why wouldn't we move to Florida?
Right.
But I was able to kind of sell my family there. My husband's family's Italian. They had liquor stores. They owned 5 of them. When the kids were born a year apart in December, I had been kind of home all the time.
Right.
I took a break from my career to kind of, since the kids were born 2 years, like 1 year apart.
Right.
So when my son turned about 18 months, I started to kind of figure out how I'm going to get the family to relocate down to South Florida. My in-laws had done the snowbird. They got a place down there.
So you guys were traveling back and forth because they had businesses down there and down there.
Lauderdale by the sea, they were there.
You got a taste of that.
Yeah, and then my brother lived in Sunrise, Florida. So there was some family for me there, and we were all really close. My in-laws were really close to my brother and their kids. So over a course of about 2.5 years, I finally I was able to
make the jump.
Talk to the family. My father-in-law was ready. My mother-in-law wasn't quite ready, but everyone together moved.
Oh.
My sister-in-law moved.
Oh, you must really love your in-laws.
Yeah, I do. We were down we were about 4 miles apart, all of us.
Right,
If my father-in-law, who's passed, had his way, we would all live together in like some big compound.
Right.
So, but we were close enough.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So it was great. Like my husband kind of switched roles. He became the corporate guy, went into distribution side on liquor and beer, and I started down there. I did manage a property called Beachside Village Resort. It was a renovation property. It's doing amazing. Little cute 30 rooms on the beach in Lauderdale by the sea, so I did that. Right. And then I did a renovation in Boca for 2 years, and during that time is when my father-in-law kept saying, gotta get your license. You're just, it's your path. Do it. And he wasn't the only one who said that to me. I heard that from some of my residents.
So what makes you, besides encouragement, what happens that you would go and say, okay, I got to go do it?
My husband was ready for me to be mom, give me more flexibility. He was always taking the kids and picking up. And so on probably 2 weeks before my daughter started kindergarten, we were sitting outside having our coffee like we always did. And he's like, so today you're going to quit your job. And he was serious. And I was like, are you crazy? I'm so busy. I have so much to do. He's like, you will continue to say that for the next 5 to 10 years, and then your kids will be in middle school or high school. So he was right. I went and I gave my notice, and my boss said, Casella, what are you doing to me? And I said, I don't know. It's just the path I have to choose. Right. It's the right decision.
So you go cold turkey. You quit. Next week you're in the class.
I go to Gold Coast School of Real Estate in Boca. I loved it. I loved my instructor. I loved what I was learning. Yeah, I just felt like it was right.
So, because everyone enters a little differently, and especially, not everyone's an Ella and kills it in the first year, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You're diving in, hey, hopefully the parachute opens.
Yes.
But what was the comfortability? Obviously, your he's got his full-time job, so you're going to eat every night. How does that make you feel? Obviously, he gave you the confidence and said, go do it. But obviously, there's still that drain on us that we're always like, we got to contribute, right?
Yes,
as a spouse, you want to contribute. But, I mean, making that jump, how does it feel when that spouse, that partner just tells you, hey, I've got it, go chase it,
For me, it was a struggle. It's hard, that fear comes over you and that need to provide, and I'm extremely independent, so that was a struggle. But yes, having that support and that partnership with him really made a difference. And I think we had gone through those types of conversations and challenges to begin with, like even me moving from Minnesota. And so I think the trust in him was a big part of it, and then the trust in myself, just knowing like, okay, I know I'm not going to get this paycheck every week, so it's up to me. Kind of like I paid myself through college, so you're going to do something.
Yeah, you've been going at 100 miles an hour and having some sort of return, whether it was your degree or you were working, you were getting money coming in, so you saw that reward. But you may go a while now without your reward when you dove in.
Yes, that was, and I had some relationships. My realtor friend, who was a broker that sold us our home in Florida, we became really close, so she was a good mentor to help kind of also instill confidence in myself. Like, I know you can do it. I can see you doing it.
Well, and I think it points out also too, I mean, when you're whether you're in this business, to find the right person. Because I think, unfortunately, we see a lot of relationships, not to be a relationship counselor or anything here, but some people can be a little selfish. And be like, oh, well, I'm working every day. You better be working and grinding it too, and where he knew you weren't really like, hey, I'm going to stay home, and, you wanted to be part of it, but knowing that the real estate would just open so much more for you.
Yeah,
and that was it. The vision.
Yeah, he saw, being an entrepreneur from a family of entrepreneurs, he saw that I was locked into this schedule, constantly working. And during lease-ups, if someone comes in after hours, you're there till 7, 8 at night writing a lease. And so the paycheck is for myself, but it's also for someone else. So he was good at that side. And my dad was also an entrepreneur. So I started to see where that shift could be, like, as long as I give it my all, I can do it.
And the hours you were putting in, I think the one thing a lot of people... someone said to me, when I went to, when I was, the first 12 years I was in the, call center, in the Loan Depot call center, the Quicken Loans call center, they do give you this small little base salary. It's just, the law and that sort of thing. But when you jump out to retail, you and I are paid on what we produce. Yeah. We can, whether it takes us an hour or 100 hours, we get paid on what we produce. Right. And, to know that the work ethic that you have, the entrepreneurial spirit that your husband has, and it seems you have obviously as well, to know that really now sky's the limit, right? Yeah. You're like, how can I get the next? You're like, how do I get the next one? Because I want to make my check bigger this year, and you have the ability where if you're working for somebody, you generally don't have that.
You don't
unlimited cap, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a ceiling of what you can produce for them or yourself, really, in payroll.
So let's go back. So this is 2013-ish, right? So tell us about, you go get your license there. did they just recruit you right out of there? The broker that you were working with down there? How do you run into the broker you're going to work for?
So Amar with Bella Costa Real Estate was one of my brokers first. I still stayed on with Beachside Village Resort, which was a big thing for me to realize, like, I have to stop, but I stayed on it knowing I love that job. So balancing the two, I did some deals, get those first checks. Well, then I went to Balistreri. So I left the boutique brokerage. Amar and I are still, like, very close, but at that time I knew what I needed was better training.
Right.
She was, a smaller boutique. I loved her. I would shadow her. But then when I went to Balistreri, it was doing the, ferry scripting and learning the things that some of our top producers were able to do. So I was in the office at 7 a.m. We had, like, a little call center. Our desk would stand up, and I would just listen to these agents around me making calls
and what they're saying. And interesting.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned as you came in that, you sneak into some of the other brokers doing trainings here in our building. How important is it for an agent to really, you've got to have a thirst for everything real estate? I mean, because it sounds like you did. You wanted to learn everything. You already knew something, but you already had one side of the industry because you've been somewhat in it.
Right.
But now you're on the sales side and getting out there and earning your own check. And it sounds like you're in there, you're listening in to what everyone else is saying. How important is it to have that kind of, I'm going to say, hunger or thirst for knowledge?
I mean, that's the drive is, if it's the drive that's in you, it's where do you drive to that produces the result.
Right.
I mean, I was finding myself doing all the things and realizing there's really a few things I can let go that I will learn when I get there.
Right.
Kind of the fake it till we make it thing. We say it all the time, but it's so true, especially when you're a new agent and people are like, so how many houses have you sold? And you're like, so you have to come up with answers. Like,
right.
The people that I worked with at Beachside Village Resort would script with me, and Lucky would always say, so tell me, how much has you sold? And I'm like, and she's like, you stopped, like, just scripting with people, helping you learn.
You gotta learn how to pivot.
Yeah, pivot your business and fake it till you make it.
Right.
I think for me, the biggest part was there's so many activities that once you know where those activities serve you best, continue to do those. Mm-hmm. So with my first experience, it was following someone who knows business is doing it, opposed to going to a big brokerage where I'm getting access to training that shows me, here's what you need to learn to get comfortable with your listing appointment. Here's what you need to learn to get comfortable on phone calls. Here's what you need to do to door knock and open houses. And so those things I listened to, but I wasn't putting them into action soon enough.
Right.
So we ended up moving up here, and that's when I went full
You kind of reset.
real estate. Yeah.
Reset.
When we moved here in 2016, once my husband, we wanted to get out of South Florida. It was just the cost of living, and schools weren't what we were loving, and the community life wasn't for us. And so when we started looking and we found Jacksonville, when we settled in, he's like, that's just today, from here forward, you're just real estate business. Mm-hmm. Give yourself the opportunity and run a business.
Right.
Don't fill it with a little side job here or a side job there.
So you led on to something there. So you felt you made some mistakes in South Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to Jacksonville allows you to reset. Tell me something that you, even today, I mean, I think we all have, I was talking with an old high school friend the other night, you talk about those, geez, I wish I did this or I wish I did that,
yes.
Regret someone you've known for most of your life. Looking back on South Florida, and maybe you have a new agent, you're talking to, or someone who just started in the business, knowing your trial and tribulations in South Florida, what were some of those trial and tribulations? You're like, I should have went a different direction. I shouldn't have done that. I did waste some time, but obviously you learned. Mm-hmm. That's the positive spin. You learned what not to do. But help us express to me what those things or some of those things might have been.
Sure. For me, it was kind of my why and who I am as a realtor, what value I provide. Because the confidence level when you first start is low and you're comparing yourself to other people. Right. So you're seeing like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. So I think my mistake was not learning kind of who I am as a realtor, what my purpose is, my why, and then containing that confidence that I can do this even though I wasn't doing it full time or I wasn't serving this many families and producing this much volume.
Because you were comparing yourself to someone else. You kind of put you down because that other person has probably been doing it for 10 years, was doing it, or 8 years in like you are now. So you know what these new agents coming in feel like when they look at someone like yourself and how well you're doing.
Right.
And so trying to compare yourself to someone who's been in the business a while, there's a learning curve.
There is. And also, one of the things I learned when I started following people and learning more about this Jacksonville area and how big it is, and I found myself kind of all over the place and not staying in like a system of some, even though I was learning some of those things early on, even when I went to like the Mike Ferry's, which now is Tom Ferry retreat. I did this like 3-day conference. You have so much to learn. It's what you put into action that's going to make a difference.
Right.
And you have to find those right things to put into action.
Right.
So that
because you may go to one of those you go to one of those conferences, or maybe you listen to Ryan Serhant or something, and there's so much information.
Yes. Which
it can become overwhelming to the point it paralyzes you, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to pick out, and you may sit there for 3 days at a Tom Ferry thing, but as I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, it might be a 30-minute segment that you take from those 3 days that you go, I want to take that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to 10x that.
Put that into action.
And go. He may have given you 100 different things, but you got to choose that one or two that's going to work in your game.
Right, because a lot of us are different. I mean, and that's what I've learned, again, too. There's different agents doing different things, but that one thing I learned when I first moved here, finding the mentor, having that person who I sat down with, who was previously with Keller Williams, like, here's my first advice. In the next 30 days, brand yourself. Who are you? What defines you? And what kind of agent you're going to be.
I heard something, I was listening, it was another real estate podcast. She does a great job. The Shit That Happens in Real Estate. It's a great podcast.
So
true. She's out of Charlotte, I think it was where she lives now. But the guest that she had on was talking... And and I can only express this in so many words. It's not a quote, but in so many words, he was saying, because he was talking about scripting, you were talking about how to talk to people on the phone, and he said, if you are not talking to your buyers your possible clients on the phone the way you would talk to a family member who's calling you about the same situation, that hey, they're looking to sell your house, that's your problem.
Yeah,
you need to talk to them like they are your family. Is basically what he was saying.
And that's so true. The relationship you make with your customer is the key thing to me that defines you from other agents. Are you listening? Are you hearing their wants? Do you then match up the search to their wants? Or are you just doing the work?
Right.
And trying to impress who I am as an agent?
Have you, you've been doing this 8 years. Was there a time where... Because obviously you've evolved to this, and we're going to get deeper into what you're talking about. Were a time where you really were more chasing the money, or like, hey, I got to set, and really not, giving that what we're talking about, that relationship building with your buyer or seller. You weren't asking all the questions because you were more just about, okay, that's what you want, let's go slam them into a new construction home, and here's the contract, boom, I'm done with that one, let's go on to the next one. Did you?
I never
do you see
did.
You never been that way?
I've seen agents that way. I'm mentoring now, and I have people that I mentor that are like that. They have a need for that right now. Like, I've been blessed that I've had that second income that really helps support me.
Right.
So for me, I never did chase the money, but there was a time where my husband and I, when we moved to Florida, we just quit our jobs, got here, and we figured it out. Like, we did some jobs that we weren't like, these are our exact jobs.
You did it
2010
to feed yourself that
County
night.
Was tough.
Yeah.
But for me, I do feel Avalon Bay really taught me that it isn't about the money, it's about an experience. And with that experience you provide, you're going to get paid money from it. And it's been instilled in me even when I worked at Johnny's, because one of the owners, there was 4 owners, and one of our owners sat down, you sit at a bar and you pass some beers across to one of your favorite customers,
right,
and it's not accounted for. Well, he sat down at one of our meetings, put all of his change on the table, and said, you guys are taking all my money, my family's money.
Right.
So he taught us I will give you compensation to treat those customers that are our favorites, that do deserve a free beer here and there, a free meal. But in the meantime, you're just stealing from me. So that instilled a lot in me that no matter how much money you're making, it's about the value of what you're doing and how you're providing a service to someone. And for me, that just stayed with me forever.
Well, for those who are in that hang up of chasing the money, because anyone that I've had on the show, any of these guys in these books, Tom Ferry, whoever you want to talk about, they're going to talk about, creating that relationship. Don't chase the money. But it doesn't take any, in my opinion, and I want your opinion, in my opinion, it doesn't take any more time, just some thought, to put value into that relationship, because a sale's still going to take 30 or 45 days. Mm-hmm. How are you, to take a few minutes up front to, chit chat with them and what they're looking for and have that conversation while you're, looking up the homes for them. It's really a thought, not time. Would you agree?
It is. Yeah. It's a thought of, I guess for when it comes down to when you are meeting with your customers, time is money, so you're going to meet with your customers, and I need to know all your thoughts and collect all of what you want to do so we know we're looking at the right places.
Right.
And most of my customers are coming from out of state. They don't have a clue where they want to live. Jacksonville's so big, St. Johns County schools are what they're searching, but maybe they like acreage, and it's hard to find acreage here, so maybe we compromise schools. But it's really what's important to you, and that's
because you're taking the time up front, sitting and maybe having a conversation over the phone, or maybe you're having coffee with them, or whatever it is, versus being quick about it and going out and driving all over Jesus, showing them 30 homes, which we don't have 30 homes to show them, but just a couple of years ago, everyone jokes about that agent is running around showing them all these homes, and all it does is it creates just confusion. Yes. Because you give them way too many options, versus just really focusing in and having that initial conversation. So since we're on that subject, when you're initially, interviewing let's say a buyer that's coming, doesn't know the area, what are some really key things that you're asking for to draw out their wants and needs?
Lifestyle choice. Where do you spend most of your time? Are you a homebody, or do you go out and adventure? Obviously, those typical questions: how many people are in your family? Where do you work? Right. Do you work from home? Do you need a home office? Obviously, have you been pre-qualified? Have you talked to a lender that you have a partnership with?
Right.
And then when I get to know how much they want to afford, whether they can afford this much but only want to spend this much, it really determines where our market's going.
Those are the better clients, yeah.
Yes.
Only want to spend this much, but they can afford that much. We like those.
Yeah, where they have especially now our market's changed so much, but and then really we have the master plan communities, Knockety, Rivertown, Beach Walk. Right. Beach Walk, a special one in its own, because of the different CDDs. Then they don't understand CDD fees. Explain those to me.
Right.
I was one that, coming from Massachusetts and Florida, South Florida, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, the HOA concept.
Yeah, I like the HOA, but the CDD was kind of like, what? Now I get it 100%. And I literally delve in right away to find out.
Because you've been in my class, I think.
Yes, I think my notes that are still in my notepad are from your class. And I refer to it all the time. And I saved that, and I just shoot it in an email, like, here's CDDs simplified.
Yeah. And
it's value for the customer.
That's the one thing I obviously I preach in the class. We're so different than, if you're listening to this from up north, maybe Jodi's going to be your realtor and you're listening to it, there is so many different needs and wants. Mm-hmm. It's because Florida, and that's why we're so hot right now, because we offer so many lifestyles.
We do.
There's so many, whether it's acreage or that's getting tougher and tougher every day, unless you want to move in further and further away from the ocean.
Right, which those areas are growing. Like, they're gonna get there.
Oh, I'm waiting for the Hastings area to explode. I really am, because Hastings, it's on the river. Because the river is water, and that whole area is ready to explode. So let me. We talked about you've been in the industry now for 8 years. Mm-hmm. What would you done differently?
Done it sooner, full time. I would have probably put systems in place right away, follow the people. Like Momentum has taught us so many valuable lessons on how to better run your business, work smarter, not harder, which I learned a lot of that at my last brokerage, and I had a great relationship with our broker in charge, and I had a mentor there too. Right. But I think my problem has been implementing it, making sure to stay on that system and stay.
Do you use a mentor, or have you used a coach before?
I did. I now mentor because I had those experiences, and I wish I had a mentor or a coach right away. I honestly think that is one of the keys to success.
So getting in, because a lot of people get into real estate, and it's just because it's an opportunity for a career.
Flexibility, money.
And they don't have any money. But if you have the ability, like any business, if in a change of career and you're like, hey, I want to open my own business, and real estate's one of the things you can do, investing in a coach would really shortens your curve real quick.
Yes. And honestly, Momentum gives you so much value to our agents. We don't necessarily need a coach anymore because we have our back office called Thinkific, which is created by our founders, John and
It's
Brittany.
like an internal coach.
It's absolutely there. So you literally, all you need to do is sit in front of your computer, block your time. Like you're going to meet your coach at 8 a.m. every day. Go sit on your Thinkific. And as I'm a mentor to mentees, I'm like, here's your 7 first videos to watch before we even start talking.
That is a great ad for Momentum right there. And I'm not to say that Momentum's the only one that does that, but to have that back office experience that is available for you, because as you say, how valuable a coach. Obviously, they must have seen the same thing, and that's why they've created the atmosphere that they've created there, that they're going to provide a coach for you. And work you through, because there is no doubt any of the great people that I've had on the podcast, they've all, I guarantee you, I wouldn't say all of them, but I guarantee a high percentage of them either still use a coach, have had a coach, but have had someone where they are compensating to provide to tell you what you need to know and obviously shorten your curve.
Yes, shorten the curve. That's the key.
Yeah, because you can get in here, and I'm sure you've seen many agents still 3-4 years in, and they're just doing $1 million or $2 million.
Right.
Where then you have someone like Ella, who was with Momentum, and we had on last week. Boom, first year, she's right there. She's a top producer.
Well, and she's learning from the top. Like Michelle was with the Brooks Group, so she's giving those agents that we bring into Momentum that are new agents or newer agents that aren't performing.
A coach on staff.
Yeah. So because when we first started, it was you had to produce $4.5 million. That's not necessarily the core value anymore, but it is like-minded people, as we call it, our tribe. We want everyone to be positive.
So. Jodi, I've got, obviously, we talk about these books and so forth, but and you basically express how important just constantly educating yourself about the business, but it's even more about real estate because you're dealing with people. What are you a book reader? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you just or is it just absorb everything that Momentum or the local board's putting out? Where do you, and how much do you spend, say, in a week on, whether it is listening to a podcast or reading, are you spending just, 30 minutes or an hour a week? How do you judge that? How do you measure that for yourself?
So when it comes to education, let me fix these. They keep sliding off my little ears. Okay, got it. Comes to education, like who I'm following, when it first started in being like, I'm money conscious, free. Anything I could do at NEFAR, I was there.
Right.
I learned how to print
You're paying
labels.
for the membership anyway.
Yeah, and that's what I tell everyone, like, don't pay for anything. You have free training. And education is key. I would say I'd educate myself 3 times a week for at least an hour when I first started, blocking out as much as I could just to learn, like, how to find the right houses to search. But now that I'm more experienced in that. I think even still, like, I'm trying to remember how to print my contacts. You can get free labels from NEFAR. It's a lot easier.
Right.
And you can do a lot hitting the streets when you're door knocking. But
right.
regardless, free is important, whether you're experienced or not.
There's a lot of it out there. There's
yes.
a lot of content and so forth that does not cost you anything.
On Instagram, you follow people. I mean, obviously, when I was with Exit, Stevie and I were working at the same time, and I started following her right away. And then, being in the same office as Marissa Scott, I mean, I took her Peak Producer class, which is a Brian Buffini class. Game changer for me. Still follow him, still listen to his podcast.
Right.
Brian Casella, not only because of the last name, but he kicks ass, and he left California and moved to Miami. Think he's awesome.
Right.
So those are probably
there are some people you're following
yeah.
and occasionally getting their content.
Yeah, the locals are like Stevie and Marissa, and I'm just replaced most everything with Momentum. Like anything that they put out for us agents. Like
right.
today I missed a podcast or one of our speakers, Paul, and it's all about the market, the conditions of our market, and I know it's being recorded, so I was like, absolutely, I'll watch it tonight.
You'll be back in later. Yeah. There's so much, whether it's on YouTube or, like you said, if you're following individuals on the podcast, there's so much information out there. Yeah. And I think, let me ask, this is a question I've asked several others. How does it make you feel, when you're listening to that podcast? Do you take a moment, or maybe when you're listening to training today, or maybe, those who read a book or go to a Tom Ferry training, how does it make, what's your internal, do you get a positive energy is basically what I'm getting out of that?
Absolutely. And you're not going to learn everything, and you kind of walk away sometimes overwhelmed, like, wow, how am I going to remember to do all of this? But
right.
you take your own little nuggets of gold and try to put them into action. I'm going to be a part of this Lift retreat that Megan Farrell's
Yes, I saw that.
doing.
And Stevie's involved in that.
There.
And well, tell us about that.
So the Lift retreat is exactly that. We always try to do something at the beginning of the year that resets you, gives you some new ideas to implement in your business. So Megan wanted to just there's like 10 of us on this panel, and mine is Road to 10 Million, but mostly what I'm focused on is not that my sales got there, but how I got there, how I leveraged my business, being a mentor, being able to not only get from my mentees extra help, but also them serving back to me.
Right.
Because that is one of my biggest prides, is sharing what I learned. To see them put it into success is like, oh my gosh, it works.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that premise of the Lift retreat, lifting each other up. It is specific to women. No offense, guys, but
I saw the pictures. A lot of beautiful women that are going.
Yeah.
If you're a single guy, you might want to pay to show up
right?
and serve drinks or something.
Yeah, we have a private chef and cocktail waitress. So.
Awesome.
But yeah, it'll be really exciting. And the reason we try to do those things at the beginning of the year is because everyone's looking to reset after the holidays, and you're like, oh my gosh, I look at my numbers from last year. What can I do to get there this year? And how am I going to plan my goals? So Rebar used to be another great one, which Cole's just listed. It's coming back up in April, so I'm going to that.
But these things, like when I'm trying to express to those who are listening on there, and those are, obviously getting inspired, taking some things from Jodi, which hopefully if you reach out to her, she'll, she's a mentor. She enjoys doing it. You get energy from it, yes. Especially when people listen to you and actually implement it, right. Even in their own way. But say, hey, Jodi told me how to do this, and I did it, and it worked. You get energy from that. It's like you're absorbing, that energy from them and their excitement, and keeps you engaged. But these different events, the Lift event is a really to take in a lot of energy from a lot of great other female realtors. Yes. That are great, share ideas, the energy of sharing. You're going to have everyone likes to hear themselves express, and hopefully, there will be people taking notes on things that you did greatly, and you'll be taking lots of notes. Yeah. And your synergy is there amongst them, and it gets you pumped up because this business, you have to get yourself up in the morning.
Your mental status, let alone just life, as difficult as it is, then the competition of real estate. I tell my girls and my kids, my husband, everyone, like, you are the thoughts you think every day.
Yes.
So try to follow, social media is such an influence over us all. And as soon as my kids get in a bad mood, if I see they're on their phone, I'm like, what did they just see?
Interesting point.
What brought you down at that moment? Because we were just perfectly fine.
Right.
Same thing with us. I've set a goal this year to only be on social media from like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., 8 lately. And then like at night when I go to bed, 9 to 10, but then from 10 to 11, like watch a video or read a book. Reading, I'll just pass out. So now it's in my ears. I do better at listening. Right. I guess it's changed. I used to love a good book, but busy mind.
Well, that's an interesting point you make about the social media and the negativity. And I'm going to put this out there for everybody. Because, after November of 2020, I shut it off. My wife's like, stop posting. I got away from all of that. Yeah. I don't get those posts. Occasionally a friend of mine may throw something up there. I don't even like it. From that standpoint, I definitely don't share it. And I don't post any of that stuff anymore. Yeah. And so now, obviously, in the things that I'm reading and doing, it sounds like you're doing with the social media, you're posting the positive stuff. So there's some little reels on Instagram or something in the last couple of days, just some motivational stuff that just positive things and sticking them out there. And it's great to see others like because I shared that, but I stole it from someone else, shared it, they liked it because somebody got something from that and I got something from it, so I shared it. And when you clean your social media up of that the negativity stuff, I think it changes you. You're not, hopefully. Changes.
I mean, people are looking at us. Who is this person? If they don't know me, like I just got a Facebook lead under contract last week. Mm-hmm. They were interviewing. And so when I did my Zoom buyers consult with them, they certainly did some pre-qualifying me on Facebook or social media, whichever avenue. I know they were on Facebook. So that's probably where they looked for me. After they were
if you're not Googling Google yourself and see what comes up. I'm telling you, people are Googling you.
Thankfully, I haven't had any of that where I had to clean up my past on any kind of Instagram, social media, but you got to be careful. Yeah. And it's definitely something, I'll be honest, there was one time I posted during the whole political stuff, and that one post that I was just kind of sharing my own feelings, I got attacked. Like, on so many levels that I took it down, and I was like, I'm good. I don't need that engagement ever again. Right,
exactly. I mean, you really, what is the value of it, right? What value are you, and although it's your personal feelings, there's no doubt, and you're welcome to call me and tell me what you feel about it.
Do a debate.
Because I think we probably are hopefully on the same side, but.
Yeah, I know we are.
I will listen, but just is it really worth it putting it out there? So that the agents that are out there listening, just don't. Social media is a tool, and there's people making your presence are out there, and if just different stuff I've listened to consistently, and podcast again talking about it the other day, putting your stuff out there. You're down in St. Augustine, you're in Jacksonville, you're at the beach. They want to see the lifestyle. You have people from this area looking at moving here for opportunities in the great schools or whatever. If you're the person out there that's giving them the visual content, you're probably going to be chosen as a realtor.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes because you're busy. So creating content before, like, I told my mentees, like, you guys know I'm here right now, but in about 2 hours, I'm going to be at Beach Walk, but I'm not really there. I was there all weekend. Right. Did I have time to post during I'm with my customers? No, I'm not going to take away from what I'm doing with my customers, but I'm going to share it again later. Now, does that mean I was there Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? No. But you also have to think about when you're posting. Like, there's certain times of the day you get better capture, all that. So
I think
crazy.
It's tagging people. Yeah, there's no doubt. The one tip, though, I heard this week is a lot of people are doing is finding those virtual people who will act like them on Facebook or whatever. Oh. And they say, even though they're really acting like you really need to engage. Yeah. Even if it's liking, the circle you're trying to influence, making a positive comment on their post or whatever. If you're trying to influence a person of influence, or you have a client in process or have a past client, they post something, say something. because hopefully that's going to be your next referral, right? Because you're staying top of mind. Oh, Jodi commented on me because she was such a great realtor, and then all of a sudden they're talking to someone else about that they need a realtor. Oh yeah, Jodi,
Yeah, and that stuff is natural for me. Like I kind of stalk my people after they move in because I'm just like so excited to see them posting. Like, my one family is at Disney, like, every week. And I don't know how you get to do that every week, but good for you guys. And take advantage of it. You know, when you first live here, your first year, you're like a tourist. You're going to go to everything.
Yeah, I keep telling myself, we've been there enough times, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, who has been the most influence on your career?
That's a good one. Like, my real estate career, like, who really pushes me is my husband. My father-in-law was a big part of that. I would say myself, too. Like she said, I really push myself.
Well, you mentioned your husband's in the lending now, right?
He is. He switched it up.
So you guys are talking...
Every day. All the time.
Real estate. I mean, that's how my wife and I, because now she's in real estate now, but we were in telecommunications together, cell phones together. So talking shop was, part of the deal, and to come in and, sometimes you just need somebody just to, to tell your stories to say, do you think this is as crazy as I think it is?
Yeah, that perspective. Okay. And now that he's in it with me, we have such better advice for each other. I couldn't really help him when he was selling liquor and how to propose new cocktails. Like, he took over a big section of something he had never done, which was great.
Right.
But the whole shift for him was really just try it. See if you love it. If you don't, you can always go back.
Right.
But so far, he's loving it.
Right.
And I love it. He was like, I don't want to work with you, though. But so far, he likes that, too.
What do you think I wrote this, I don't know if this is probably a better English way to say this. What are you best at?
What I'm best at is listening to my customers, not necessarily my family. Right. But I think I'm best at empathizing with people, like really trying to put myself in, like, what's it like right now for them and how maybe providing some solutions. Do
you have to think, when you're interviewing, and we talked about earlier, interviewing that potential buyer and taking the time, do you have to internally, for me, I have to internally think to myself, slow down. I do this every day. They don't.
Yes.
Slow down. Ask all the right questions that you need to ask. Be empathetic. Whatever. Put those. You actually have to think about that, or does that come natural to you?
I think now I have to think about it because I'm so much more busy, and I tend to forget that not everyone knows the terminology we use. Like, if you say POA, they're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, power of attorney.
Yeah.
There's things we have to be really conscious of that they might not know. And I had a lender I worked with before that he would get on the line with me, and I'd say, I'm not going to say his name, teach me like I'm a kindergartner. Like, I don't know any of it because I want to know all of it.
Right.
And maybe you're not the person to do that because you're too busy, but who in your office
slow it
could?
Down a little bit.
Yeah, like, teach me.
Right.
So now I do that because I know in my own purchases of homes or refinances, that's, to me, that's like your biggest part of the transaction is how do we get them to afford it, unless they're cash, which we have a lot of that going on here.
Right.
But yeah, so I think I try to be a good listener and educator.
Right. Okay. Jodi's 3 keys to success. Would you say one of those would be listening?
Listening.
One, okay.
Consistency, getting up every day, showing up every day, but also giving yourself the grace of
would you agree that being present, being involved in the board, going to classes, being consistent because there's consistent social media. Yeah,
so there's so many things we can do.
Right.
I don't love social media as much as I used to. I do know it's a tool, and I need to put it into action.
Right.
More so what I pivoted my business to is being a mentor. So a lot of my time, I meet Mondays and Fridays from 9 to 12 with my girls every Monday, Friday. I'm putting in the time so that I think the 3 key things is blocking your time. Where is your time best spent? And shifting your business accordingly.
Do you take, for lack of better words, momentum from your mentoring?
I do, because I show up every day. I'm more involved. I'm more aware. I even had
that helps you. That helps.
Yeah,
Not everybody wouldn't necessarily want to be a mentor, but for you, you're taking that as momentum because you're excited about going in and sharing your ideas, which I think anyone has heard the phrase, basically, if you want to learn it, teach it.
Yes.
And you keep drilling that. And then, of course, obviously there's a subliminal thing that says, I just told them to do this. I need to be doing it myself.
Exactly.
Right.
Preach.
Right. Do
as you say.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, like, for even me, yesterday, one of my mentees said, I need you to slow down. Like, she could feel that I'm a little bit overburdened right now with some of the things that I'm doing. And, like, take some of it off, see where it best serves me. So even that feedback was amazing.
Right.
And I do look to them like, give me your honest opinion. Tell me what you really feel. Tell me why you feel it. And are you happy with what's going on? So asking those questions, listening. So number one, listening to consistency, maybe pivoting your business when need be. And then my third thing that has definitely brought me success is just maintaining the relationships with my customers, bringing them the value, not only after we've closed, because honestly, I've sold and closed homes that I sold to you, and now we sold it, and now we're moving somewhere else. I've sold homes in New Hampshire, Indiana, Texas.
Right.
So those partnerships, relationships with other agents.
It's so important in our industry, whether it's on the real estate side, on the loan officer side, or even business in general. I think the follow up on the past client. And amazing. I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and they were talking about they had these problems why they were having the loan. There was some issues, whatever it may be. They got the closing and got the house, but there was some issues. And the reality is, so many people, when they get there and they sign and they got their keys, they realize that battle is over, and they oftentimes forget whatever it was. To consistently reach out back to them. Those are your. I grew up on Cape Cod. We had lobster traps. My dad had a.
We need
a
separate off-screen conversation about this.
So I'm going to use this analogy. So everyone, hang with me. We had lobster traps. We knew lobstermen, and obviously a big commercial lobsterman has hundreds of traps. Yeah. Think of each and every one of your past clients as a new trap, because those are going to continue to trap you new lobsters, new clients all the time by their referrals.
Yeah.
But you have to tend to them periodically. You have to go out once a week or twice a week or whatever that tending takes, or in our world, once a quarter, once a month, once a year, something, in reaching out to them, letting you know you're still in the business, you're still thinking about them, but you got to tend that trap. And those past clients are traps for future clients.
That's a great analogy. I love
Thank you.
it.
You like that
and
lobster analogy?
Lobster.
So,
I'll remember that one.
Yeah, that's a great one. I just made that all up right here today. Well, just like off my feet. So we asked what you were best at, and we'll finish with this question and go into our 2-minute warning questions. Where do you think your biggest area of improvement is? Or
letting go of control on all levels.
Oh, that's a big one. That is so big and important in the podcast I'm listening to. As you reach the level that you reached, there's whether it's virtually or as an assistant that can do a lot of your stuff, but you oftentimes feel like you're the only one that can do it.
Yeah, I have a great partnership with my last mentee, Erica Smith, and we were meant to be in each other's lives. It's consistently been a relationship I trust, but she's busy too. So we're trying to think, like, can we do something more leverage with an assistant? Or,
right.
I mean, even just like with my family, my home, my mom, I'm trying to get her to move to Florida. Just letting go. I've given you all the tools. I've given you the value.
I love Kristen Lunsford from the magazine, Real Producers Magazine. She says they got to the point where they have someone doing their laundry.
That's
her
what John
husband
Brooks
told
will
her to
teach
find.
us.
Yeah. So
John
I still
did
keep
a
forgetting
whole
the messenger.
class on our personal leverage.
Yes.
And it's implementing it right now that we have the knowledge. I did have a cleaning lady. John said, we love cleaning. Me and my daughter love it.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to pay the cleaning lady, because it's something you get
Inspiration or energy from.
I get energy out and I think while I'm cleaning.
Right.
So I stopped doing that, and now I'm going to leverage someone to do my shopping, like all my home shopping. Like my sister-in-law said, use Ship, do this, do that.
Right. The grocery shopping can be delivered or whatever.
Yeah.
Taking those little chores, because we get to a point in life, you get to a point of success. Now you want to actually utilize the fruits of your labor. You have two children. They look like 15 and 16. Oh my goodness. So, they have activities. You still want to be involved in your life, but you don't want to be, having to go to the grocery store when you could be spending an hour with them at their ball game or whatever it is.
Yeah, lacrosse.
Yeah, lacrosse. Yeah. So, so leveraging others, that's so important. All right. So here's our 2-minute warning questions as we wrap things up here.
Okay.
Is it more important who you know or what you know?
Who you know. Because who you know will teach you what you know. And I wish I would have paid more attention to that when I knew the people I knew. And one thing I will say, Avalon taught me this amazing thing that we would hang on our fridge every year, letting go of the toxic people in your life, even if they are some of the closest people you know.
Yes.
So who you know and who you're giving that time
You were
to.
a little inspirational because you were talking about your father-in-law who's left us, but how I guess he was a positive influence on you as your husband's been, but to have him say, Jodi, you can do it, it means a lot.
He was a great, and my mom too, it was like the work ethic. Show up on time, put some lipstick on. My mom is like, you need lipstick. I don't wear lipstick. But she was that. But yeah, and he was really the behind the Casella Sells Real Estate. I picked this bridge. We did my logo. I called them. I'm like, okay, I have my logo from the bridge because of the bridges of Jacksonville.
Right.
All these bridges connect us from our community. I'm also the bridge between the buyer and the seller.
And your new home.
And he said, well, your Casella sells in our last name. Why can't you just do Casella Sells Real Estate?
Right.
It's like, simple.
Yeah, right.
Easy.
No, that's a great slogan. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So thank
but because because family members can be the most toxic, as you say, people sometimes are close. They can be the most negative. And I think you learn as you mature, but some people never actually reach that. But I know as I've gotten older, your time will come. You may be jealous of a family member or a friend being successful because you don't feel you're successful at that time in your chapter in your life as opposed to something. Yeah. And your journey will come if you are present and doing the things that you need to do, like listening to mentors, finding out who's who, and as Stevie Hahn talked about, went and had coffee with everyone that had anything to do with real estate so she could shorten her curve. Yeah, and how that shortened your curve. There's people out there who want to give back. You've been doing this 8 years. You're a top producer. If you're a new agent, you need to be calling Jodi, and she wants to help.
Too. They call me all the time, and I'm really very transparent and honest. Like, yes, my hours are flexible, but you're gonna have to work weekends. You're gonna have to work nights. Your phone, I can turn my phone off now for a couple hours because I know I don't have anything. You're blocking your time. So yes, I will be a resource to anyone who's thinking about doing
in our business is feast or famine.
Yes,
so get it while you can, gather all your nuts while you can, because tomorrow may not be as good.
Right. Invest.
Now, if that goes on for 3 or 4 years and you've gathered a lot of nuts, you're probably in a good spot.
You're in the right time at the right place with the right people.
Exactly. What's Brian? Right? Is your husband's name?
Joey.
Joey.
Joseph.
Okay,
Joseph.
I'm gonna have Brian on my mind. Joey.
Because I have a lot of Brians that I've mentored. Brian Buffini, Brian Casella.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, because you mentioned you had Brian Casella.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Joey, you enjoy. What is on your travel bucket list?
We want to go to Italy, being he's Sicilian. And we already did Ireland.
He wants to go to Sicily. He's got to hang with the...
Yeah. We did Ireland with his company. Luckily, they were ones to foot the bill. So
that was cool.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
And he's got amazing Breckenridge plans with our son who loved snowboarding over Christmas. So a cool trip planned for him.
I have been skiing once, and it was to Breckenridge, and we definitely had a good time, for sure.
I haven't been. I hope to go someday.
That was unfortunately that was before we moved here. Geez, that's been a good 12 years probably.
10, 12 years ago, right? It's like that's how fast it goes.
It's yeah. Who would be a great guest to have on my show?
Oh, I would put one of the Momentum.
That's what I was gonna say. Who at Momentum you think would be one of your?
Michelle Weaver.
Michelle Weaver's gonna come on. I already have her booked. She's coming on.
Well, I love following Madison Beal because her story rocks where she came from. So I would
Madison Beal.
Madison Beal.
Okay, so I'm gonna invite her. You tag on to the invite. And we'll see if we get her scheduled up. But Jodi, I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I know we can talk for hours like everybody I have on. We can talk about Cape Cod. Yeah. Yes. I'm going to maybe try to get up there this summer. I haven't been back. And, the reason why last time I went back was in January was not for, obviously, fun times. Unfortunately, someone had passed away. But
that's why we go there now, too.
Yeah.
Well, weddings or funerals tend to bring us all together.
We got to go there in the sunshine in July and August. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.